wanting to share about what happened on Yom Kippur when I was 20 years old. Something I didn't tell you was like what I felt at the time about the word God, like that whole idea was so obvious to me that it's this huge X factor, like everything we don't know through science yet. And so that's scary for people. And so it's like, well, let's call the X God. Like, let's like fill it in with a story. And it felt a little embarrassing that people would be talking about God. Like, I just want to thank God. I'm like, oh, like I thought that person was then not very sophisticated or not very smart or something. And it was Yom Kippur, and I wasn't really interested in going home. I had just read The Fountainhead by Ayn Rand, and I was like, it's true, you know, like why do we feel so small in a church when we like built the church? Like we should feel exalted, you know, we should feel like large, you know, and strong and powerful. And I was like, you're right, what are we doing, you know? And which I think is also such a beautiful idea still. Just like, what are we doing? You know, really looking into what we're doing and who we are and how powerful we are. And that does not mean, so I get ahead of myself. So I chose to stay home for Yom Kippur because I was like, it's not my thing. And I was sitting on my bed, not a spiritual seeker, not a yogi, sitting on my bed, and in a tiny little room in 64th West 64th Street, and I felt like a really strong like pull from my solar plexus, like a tug, very gravitational, just like pull. And I knew I had to move to the floor, like sit on the floor. I felt almost like I was like physically pulled down to the floor. So like, okay. And so I sat on the floor, and I knew to light a candle, which is something that I never ever did, you know. But I had one, and I lit a candle. And all of a sudden, like that tug down into the earth, like resulted in this shaking, like, you know, like suddenly I was just shaking and shaking. And I just remember really well, like opening my eyes and seeing the candle and the flame dancing. And it felt like it was very in sync, like very much the same thing happening to us. And it moved up and up, and it was just like, and what I would say afterwards, like, I actually didn't tell this to anyone for at least a year. Like, it was just, it opened me up into feeling like this is just what we are. It didn't feel like something to talk about. It was just suddenly like, everything is new. Everything is different. So what happened was, it felt like I was being scalped. Like a literal opening of the head. Like something parting right here. And my body is shaking, and all I could say was, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, like over and over. And it was just like total ecstasy. And the oh my God was like this palpability of presence on my face, like on all around me. It was like so palpable. And it was something literal. It was just like, oh my God, you know, like this, what is this, all over my face and touching my eyeballs and in my mouth, you know. And I remember in that moment thinking, oh, good, you know, my roommate two doors down was feeling very depressed. And it was like, oh, good, like, I can tell her what we are. Like, I can tell her that everything is amazing, you know? And I just took a pause and was just like, what will I say? how will I show her? And I just like ran through any words that I could possibly say to her in order to be like, like everything is different. You don't have to be sad, you know? Like, we're perfect. I don't, like, it was just like, what would I possibly say? And there was this moment of, oh my God, there are no words for what is happening. There's not going to be anything I can say about what's happening. There's nothing to say. And that, like, from that moment, it was like, this is the bane of my existence right now. Like, I could see that that was true. Like, this is everything, and there's nothing to say about it. And so it was just like, oh my God, oh my God. And then I actually didn't say this part, that I was very moved by the fact, like, okay, so it's Yom Kippur, and like I'm having this experience. So Yom Kippur, I'm like, what do I know about Yom Kippur? Like, you're supposed to say you're sorry to people, you know, or say if you have anything to say to someone. And so I just started calling people, and I was rocking, and the candle is here, and I was just like, blah, blah, blah. And mostly I remember there were answering machines, but it was just like, blah, 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 blah. And then I went to my refrigerator. The only thing in there was frozen chocolate chips, and I went to the window, opened the window, and like held the chocolate chips like a few at a time to my chest, and because I could feel things like pouring out of me, like just like things that weren't needed, or it just felt like a channeling of like anything that didn't want to be there, and I was like pouring it into the chocolate chips and throwing it out. Now there's a practice now that I know called tashlich, which is casting out, and it's exactly that, only with bread and water. And I did not know that at the time, but I was suddenly just doing tashlich out the window, you know, on Yom Kippur, which is the last day that in 10 days that you can do it, and you could do it anytime, but that you're meant to do it. And then I just remember turning to my bed. I think this was before the tashlich, but like turning to my bed after having it be this very formless experience, and seeing like, oh my God, like in this thing, it's not just this like experience or a transcendence or this palpability in the air, pure present consciousness. My comforter is made of it. Like, I'm looking at it, and it was like, it is it. It is made of it. And so I was just like, oh my God. And like so awed by everything in creation being it. Like a pixels in a TV screen where it's just like, there's no separation here. We think that this is a separate thing, but it is not a separate thing. And like ein od is in Hebrew, like there's nothing else. There's nothing else. Like, and suddenly these words, that the way I fell in love with Torah was because suddenly like words like you are God, there is none else, that in Judaism I'm like, well, how come there has to be none else? How come ours has to be the best? It seems prideful, like Judaism, this thing. Suddenly it was like, God is everything. There is nothing else but this God, but this oneness, but this. There's nothing else, because all of it is that. So any smaller God that you think, like, that is also it. There's nothing else. There's no other, you know. So these things suddenly was just like made so much sense. Suddenly it was like, this is actually holding space, holding a truth of the fact of oneness, the fact of nothing but this thing. And when I went outside for the first time, first of all, I woke up the next morning and it was like immediately just, oh my God, oh my God. So it like didn't go away. And I went outside and I lived kind of like in projects in on 64th Street, like walking through, like that's how you get to the street. And so it was kind of like not a lot of intimate space. Like I was walking through and this guy was there, he was the only one, and it was the first person I saw, and I just remember being like oh my God. like that each person, when I would be walking, each person was like, I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna see a concentrated place where there's so much God that a body was needed. Like a star is not a vessel with light in it. A star is where there's so much light that a vessel needed to be born. And so in that same way, it just was like, this is such a concentration of God that it needed a face. And that I was going to be able to see its face again. Because as I walked through the air, it felt so thick and palpable that I felt like I had to do the breaststroke. Like it felt like for months, I mean really months, walking through New York City. And I would walk pretty slowly and I would just be like, oh my God. And so then when a person would be arriving, it was like, and then I would look and I'd be like, oh my God, like, it's you, you know? So I really loved the first person I saw, you know, like it was just like this really beautiful, just dropping in from afar, like he was over by a building and we looked at each other and we looked at each other for a little while and he was like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah. And he was like, all right. He's like, you be safe out there, okay? And I'm like, and I, you know, because he could feel like there was no separation between us, like just none. It was just like, yeah. Is there anything that could be clarified?
That was very crystal clear.
Well, then I really started loving the word. Well, no, I actually kind of didn't like the word God still, because I would hear it used and be like, what? Like, that doesn't even make any sense. What are you saying? Like, it being this, thing in the sky, like God said that, you know, like, the way that it was used and as if we knew what it was saying, just so often was like, whoa, I don't think you should be using that word, you know? Yeah, but I also loved it. Also, God, you know, it suddenly was a thing. Like I have said before, that it's as if you just didn't believe in couches, and then suddenly I'm like, whoa, oh, couch, you know? Like if I didn't have a word for that thing, then who knows what would have come out of my mouth. But it was, oh my God. And it would come back over and over, especially when I would let go of the past and let go of the future and enter the moment. So I would walk very slowly. I would do that very much on purpose, sort of seduce it into palpability, into visiting my body. my body would be and sometimes it would just come on its own, where suddenly I would be like, uh-oh, like a lot like the Incredible Hulk, where there's like a sound almost like he knows he's about to turn into the Incredible Hulk, you know, and it's like, where am I gonna put my body? Like that's what it was like for years after that, where it was like, I'm about to dissolve into nothing. I'm about to have no ego. And that was not safe to do just anywhere. So I would feel it coming on, and I sometimes literally, I think only like twice, literally, like go into a closet, like at a party or something. Or, you know, one time I had to like leave a meditation place and just like put my body somewhere, you know. Because I would go into just like not have, and also movement of the body, like these kind of spasms would be just introduced all by itself. So it was a very strange thing, like even like a silent retreat wasn't exactly right, because there was sound, like it was sometimes like things like that would be happening, and it had to happen, like it was like this like total clearing, and it was totally ecstatic, but also like just going into the void. Like my body would shake and shake, and then there would be just nothing, and then I would be nothing. Like there was no I there. And that's a really interesting thing to look back on, because it was like the ego was like, we need to tell everybody, like, what people should be sitting with me, right? Like I want to sit with one person at a time, and because I am not here, there is no I, so I'm only the universe, and I would just want to sit with each person and pour into them, like there is nothing else but the universe, we are connected, and so that they would like get the transmission of it, of like, it's all one, I don't even exist, because from that non-existence there is a quickening of each moment into a very graceful reality, into like where it's kind of choiceless, we're not doing, but something is being done through us, we're being spoken through, we're being danced through, you know, and that what happens has to do with the whole much more than the ego thinking like, this is what I need. Suddenly we know what people need much more when we're in that sort of allowing the universe to dance our body. And so there was a feeling of like, oh my God, I'm in this nothing. I want to sit and like let everybody know nothing, 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 and everything. But there wasn't ego enough to say, you guys, and it felt just like totally counterintuitive. I couldn't say I couldn't say, you guys come sit with me. Saying you guys is as if you guys are something separate than I am. And I was in total oneness where there was no you guys. So all I could do was sit. All I could do was just like, be nothing. And the ego had frustration about that, you know, like even in my 30s looking back on it, because that was all in my 20s, like the whole throughout my 20s. Is just like, God, I wanted to share that. God, if somebody had asked me a question, or how might I have shared that when I was in it, you know? And now it's just a really different time. Now it's like, I got my ego back for my 30s, and it's just like, wow, I know that that's the underlying reality. I know that that's true more than anything else is.